Stan Gibilisco here, proprietor and operator of amateur radio station W1, GV Whiskey 1, good vibrations. I got a comment on my video, The Best Antenna Test. I believe that's the title of the video. A question, actually. And the question was about shortwave receiving antennas, shortwave listening receiving antennas, kind of a little redundant there, SWL, shortwave listening. Now I consider the shortwave portion of the band technically to be the HF spectrum from 3 through 30 megahertz. Well, that's approximate. A shortwave receiver might cover all the way down from, well, the broadcast band, the AM broadcast band, 500 kilohertz or so, up to about 30 megahertz. But let's just consider that general range. What would be the ultimate shortwave receiving antenna? And he said space would be no limitation. It should be omnidirectional. Space being no limitation, meaning you have as much room as you need. Suppose you live in the eastern part of South Dakota, for example, flat as a tabletop, and you live on a ranch, maybe 1,000 acres if you're lucky, and you can string up as long a wire as you want, or as, well, as tall as a tower as you want, if that's your bent. Money, I guess, would be no object either. What he suggested, balance, some of these 64-to-1 balance, like the end-fed half-wire, end-fed half-wire, EFHW, end-fed half-wire, right, half-wave, or multiples thereof. Balun at the end and then run coaxial cable into the station. I don't know what I would do if I had that opportunity, but I have some ideas, and I think what I'd probably try is a circular loop, horizontal loop antenna up as reasonably high as I could get it, 50-foot creosoted utility poles in a huge circle, maybe a couple of kilometers in diameter, directly ground it at the far end, at the opposite end from where the receiver is, and feed it with a balanced line, and then directly connect the ladder line, balanced line, to the antenna. No balun or transformer or anything. Run that balanced line into the station, and then connect the balanced line to a transmatch, and it could be a low power transmatch because you're receiving, you're not going to be transmitting into it. Although I'd suggest if you were a radio ham, you'd be tempted to try it for transmitting. So a good balanced transmatch, true balanced transmatch, such as the type that Palstar makes, or the old Johnson Viking Matchbox type transmatches. True balanced output, a good ground at the station, a good earth ground, an electrical ground at the station, and a direct earth ground at the point on the antenna that is diametrically opposite where the feed line meets it. That would maximize the signal that you get and minimize the noise you get, thereby maximizing the signal to noise ratio. And that's the only thing that really matters in shortwave receiving is signal to noise ratio. You want that as great as possible. If you need a little louder signal or more sensitivity for weak signals, you might consider a preamplifier between the transmatch and your radio. But I would simply go with what I've just described. If you have a couple of $1 million, a couple of 1,000 acres, tabletop flat ranch, the ground will minimize atmospheric noise, and all kinds of noise, and will protect you in case your antenna gets struck by lightning, which is a possibility in most parts of the United States. Where you have flat land like that in eastern South Dakota, you've got a lot of bad weather that can come your way, and a lot of noise can be generated, snow static, all kinds of things. But grounding that antenna will protect you, your station, from calamity, or at least help reduce the risk, and will also, well, you know, you put a lot of effort into that ground, put a lot of effort into that antenna, and I think you'll be pleased with the results. And if you're a radio ham who likes to work HF, I would consider that you might think that'd work. I think you'll find that'd work pretty well there too. But that's my idea. Now I'm going to ask you viewers, what would you do in a similar situation? If you wanted to, the best possible, the ultimate shortwave receiving antenna, you had all the room in the world and all the money in the world, what kind of antenna would you put up and why? Stan Gibilisco, W1GV, saying 73 and so long, which, whatever kind of antenna you decide to use, if you transmit anything in my native fist, you would always send da-da-da-da-da-da at the end of your QSO.